Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call to order the Plan Commission study session. Sergio, if I can get roll call, please.
Bob Burleson,
Here.
Yolanda Cardona, not here tonight. John Gill,
Here.
Joe Gomestego, here. Bob Valois,
Here.
Jenna Lordson,
Here.
John Kennedy,
Here.
Attorney Adam Decker,
Here.
Engineer John Dykstra,
Here.
Councilman Liaison Brian Blazak,
Present.
and Town Manager Joe Wizzawati.
Present. All right. First on our agenda is a request for a five-month extension to December 2nd, 2023 of preliminary plat for 25 single-family units for Steve Kill. How are you, sir?
Good, how you guys doing?
Doing well today, sir.
Actually, we're item A and B, and we kind of go together since they're, the same request going out to December. If you recall, last time, several months ago, I came in and asked for a request, and they were obviously at different times, is when they were going to expire, 21B, 24, 25, 27, and 28. So we are going to actually be finished with 24.
We're losing power.
Sorry about
Anyway,
that.
as you know, and Bob will tell you that actually the subdivisions are being constructed right now. We're going to get the roads put in, but we don't know if we can make the deadline, the first one that we have. So we figured, okay, we'll get 21B, 24, and 25 wrapped up and get them all final platted. The only one we're not going to have done is we will not have 27 and 28 done. We'll have the dirt work done. So it's likely that I will probably be back towards the end of the year and ask for, maybe 6-month extension again for 27, 28. But these two that are on your agenda will be done by the end of this year. We'll have them final platted. We'll have the streets in, we'll have them all done. So that's the simple request tonight, is just to extend this to the deadline of 27 and 28. That way they'll all be on the same cycle to December of this year, December 4th, I believe. Jenna can correct me if I have that date maybe wrong, but.
Just a couple days, but
So going with 21B, the request instead of 6 is 5, just so you get 21B, 24, and 25 at the exact same time, or 2 days off.
Right, we will have those final platted by the end of the year.
Okay.
I just don't think I can make the expiration date. We have a July expiration date, and I don't want to run up against that. And, the roads will be going in right about that time, John,
Gotcha.
is why I'm in front of you.
Oh, instead of asking for a 6-month, which we usually do, you're asking for you're doing 5 in 1 month, just so they sort of end.
Just so they sync, right. I mean, I don't need the whole 6 months, right.
Gotcha. Okay. Questions, comments?
No.
Discussions? Okay. Do we want to talk about the water? No? Yes?
Steve, I was out there today performing a hydrostatic pressure test on 24. And on our maps or our plans, it did not show a 4-inch main going to that. Sergio, could you go to that lot, that big lot? There you go, 2481, right there. The 4-inch main that comes between 2403 and 2404, is there a public easement through that now? Or what took place there? Because
Well,
we
that's-
don't have this on any of our plans.
Well, you wouldn't have it just yet.
Okay,
The actual, where that's at, that's where all the barns are at.
right.
So what we're doing with that, we're doing nothing with it right now. That's actually where Jonathan Lawton is staying right now in that home. So we would come in, if there's something we wanted to do with that in the future, we would come in and we would have to plat that.
But there's a 4-inch line in there.
It would, well,
So is it a 4-inch tap? Is it a service line?
so where's it coming in, Bob?
Right between 2403 and 2404. And it's got a plug. See where it says plug?
Yes,
There's a valve on the north side of that road tied onto that 4-inch line.
to the property line, right?
It's right
Rear
through that
property line?
property line to the property line to 2481.
4-inch.
Yeah. Would
That
you
seems like an odd, I mean,
do you see it on there?
yeah, no, I know where you're at, yeah.
Well, we don't, is it a service line? Is it a, we don't, we want to stay away from side easements. You
It's-
know, that's.
Yeah, it's not, I don't want to say it's a service line, I mean,
Well, then, if it's public, it should be a minimum of 8-inch.
Bob, I don't, I wish I had an answer for you right now. I simply don't. I don't know what could be built there that would require a 4-inch service line.
I'm trying to figure it out too.
Yeah,
if
I mean, if it was a 1.5 inch maybe, or something like that, I could tell you that that would be a future service. But I will find out, and I'll let you know, I'll give you a buzz.
Give us all a bus.
Yeah, I
You-
want,
Oh, you guys a call?
Yeah, let us all know, please. I don't need him.
No, I'll let, yeah.
Please.
I'm hoping the information will get transmitted to everybody then.
Yeah.
So we,
Now, is that an easement?
Be-
I'm sorry, sir.
yeah, I guess we would want to see and make sure there is an easement in there for that. And then also, responsibility-wise, I don't think the town would want to be responsible for that line going there that wasn't on our approved plan.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that if it's not a town line, if it's there for private purposes.
Well, we tested it today. It
And
was
I have
part of
no,
that
but I
test.
can't tell you why it's there right now. I did
Okay.
not know that, honestly.
Okay. Yeah, we'll need a little.
But I will
clar-
find out, and I will get back to you and let you know.
Okay.
all right.
That's the only
So,
question
okay.
I had on that.
So we had item A, 21B. Any questions regarding that for the extension of 5 months? That will come to us in June. We then jump down to units 24 and 25, where we have the easement and the 4-inch water line that we would probably want to have answers prior to our June meeting before we take any action on that. So we have clarification on who's responsible for that line and,
John, I suspect I'll get back to Bob tomorrow on it.
okay.
Yes.
And, yeah, just let the team know here. Appreciate it. Any other questions? So then the request to us potentially in June would be for an extension for these 3 units to get it to December of 2023.
Just real quick, I'm looking at these two things here. It looks like the addresses are different than, and I don't know which one's which, to be honest with you, Steve, but.
Yeah, the lot numbers seem to be too off
Yeah.
everywhere in
Oh, okay.
the plans now versus the approved plat.
Those are just lot numbers. Okay, that's not the address.
Yeah, look at
Yeah, 20,
2408, 2410, 24.
Which unit is that? What unit are you?
Looks like 24.
24? I'll check the lot numbers, John, is what you're referring to?
Yeah, like if you look at the two big pie, it goes from 2401 and 2402 on this plan with the side yard water main, and it's 2403 and 2404 on the other plan that was reviewed in, I believe, December of 19.
The plat doesn't match the utility plan.
Steve,
for
if you
lots.
look up there,
Lot numbers.
Tyler's looking at it. I think he sees what we're talking about over there. You have the approved plans, plat, and then you have,
Yeah, I don't know which one's which.
the 24.
The approved that
This
we have on
approved.
file is the left one right
Yeah.
there, and then the darker one
Right.
on the right is what they were using in the field today when,
Yeah.
when the inspection was done.
Yeah.
I would have to probably think those are probably 2 different sets of plans. I mean, the one that was approved is, we're going to follow the approved primary plat when we come in with the final plat. It could just be a field set of drawings, Bob, you have,
Okay.
but we're going to follow the lot numbers they're going to coincide with each other, you know, we're going to go right from primary to final and keep the same lot numbers, so.
Yeah, we noticed this when I came back and I was looking through even the plans that I had didn't show any 4-inch, so that's what caught me off guard, and I wasn't sure what was taking place, so.
Yeah, I wish I could answer that for you, but I will have an answer for you tomorrow.
All right, anything else for the good of the cause? Good catch on the numbers. All right, and then we're gonna let them go. Going once.
You can be here for a
For
minute
now.
here.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Kill.
All
Get
right.
back to us on that.
Thank you, guys, will do.
Next on the agenda, we have item C, Martin's Commercial Edition, Lot 9, a proposed site plan amendment to remove 2 light poles from the previous approved site plan. Mr. Brant, how are you, sir?
How are you today?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was his second one, okay. That was like- Okay, I must have missed the first one, or fell asleep. Oh,
Thank you, sir. Oh, very good.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to talk about amending the site plan for the Martin's Commercial Retail Subdivision. And if you look at the documents that I gave you, originally in March of '21, we had proposed to do parking in the green area. There was parking in that green belt area. And then when we came back in May, after talking with the council here, they wanted to remove the parking area, but my Turinga forgot to remove the 2 light stands that are in that green belt. So if you look at the second page I gave you, this shows the 2 light poles in the green belt area. And I mean, there's no reason for those lights to be there. And I don't want to cut the street to put them in. And I don't want to take out 2 trees that are already there existing. And they don't provide any benefit to the development. So I'm here asking for an amendment to the site plan to remove those 2 light stands that are in a greenbelt area.
All right,
I'm here to answer any questions that you might have regarding this request.
questions, comments? John, have you had an opportunity to look at this to make sure it still meets our lighting requirements?
I only briefly looked at it, but not that extensive. I wanted to hear the explanation first, and now it makes sense, what Mr. Brandt is saying. We'll confirm that. I think it does because those parking stalls that were on that, on the east side are removed. So, correct? That's
Correct.
gonna all be green space?
It's all going to be green space, and I provided the luminums, you know,
Yeah.
with that, and there's no need for those lights there. It's just, and I don't want to take out 2 of the beautiful trees that are already existing there to put them in
Yeah.
that won't provide any, it just doesn't serve the,
Is this photometric plan that you submitted corrected for those 2 light
to
standards?
the removal of those
Yeah.
no, but I can provide you one if you want one.
Yeah, we would want to see one with it and then without it, and
Okay.
confirm that there's no need to have them there, so, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a problem, I can provide
So
that.
make sure get it to building and planning, and we'll get it, so.
All right, no
okay.
problem, thank
Yeah,
you.
Thank you. And we'll have a letter on that, John, then.
Because that roadway that runs on the east side, is that a public roadway?
I think it's a private roadway owned by the bank and the property owners for the strip center. It's the ingress egress to come out of that total site. Now, there is an existing light pole already there, and it would be, well, I don't have it here, but there's already an existing light on the west side of the road there to light that roadway. But the 2 lights here don't add any value. All they're gonna do is make the property brighter, and I have to remove 2 of the trees to put those 2 light poles in, and it's only lighting up a green belt area.
Mr. Brand, is there lighting on the back side of the building?
Yes.
And is there another pole, or is there any more poles other than it's just all lighting off the building?
There, you know, I can't answer that question for the
Okay.
parking in the front area of the building, but in the rear of the building, we have existing lighting on the back side of the building to light the parking, which would be, if you look at your second page, would be lighting the back side of the building where the parking is supposed to go, and it would be page 2 of your document.
Okay.
But yes, there's lighting there approved. It's already been approved by you when we got the site plan approved.
Okay. Questions, comments? So this will be a request for a site plan amendment in potentially June.
Correct.
Okay.
And my request would be to remove those 2 light poles that are in the green belt area that are existing now.
Okay. And you'll provide photometrics to our town engineer prior to?
Yeah, I would, as soon as possible.
Sure.
So to allow for time, yes.
I could do that, by next week, no
Okay,
problem.
good.
And I think it'll be better for the whole community because it won't light up the backs of all the other building behind it.
Mhm. Yep.
Right. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah. Yeah, I drive by that every day.
Yep. All right.
Thank
See you
you.
in June.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Next on the agenda, we have item D, stream size, proposed preliminary plat of stream side. And we have Mr. Yatsko. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good.
At our last meeting, there were a few comments that came up. Since that time, we've had a chance to revise some of our plans. We've had a chance to review some of these issues with staff. So I believe, for the most part, the comments on the CCRs, the right-of-way dedication, and the engineering review letter, I believe, and I'll let staff make their recommendation, but I believe all of that has been resolved, or very soon to be resolved. I really think the big thing that I just wanted to talk to you guys about tonight, just to give you an update, were the White Oak improvements. So that came up, and if we were willing to expand White Oak, and what we could do for that. So we actually had Manhard sit down, and they actually reviewed the whole geometric plan for White Oak as if it was a full build out with 2 lanes. We also took a look at if in the future there was going to be an entrance on the east side of White Oak, with double left turns in the middle and XL-D-cell lanes on each side, what that geometry would look like. We provided that geometry to staff. We actually had a meeting yesterday. And then what we proposed to do was build all of those improvements on the west side of White Oak. So there is widening to get the full lane widths. There's widening for tapers. There's widening for any kind of future left turns in the middle. And that would be along the entire frontage of Streamside. So it would go from the south side of the Irwin property. Oh, yep, there's an exhibit right there. I'm sorry. So it would go from the south side of the Irwin property all the way down to the south side of our property. And again, that's a concept, but we would put in all the improvements there that is on our frontage. So then the only other issue would be and I think we've talked about this a few times, was the curb along White Oak. I'm sorry, the curb along 109th. I think we've kind of decided that curb probably doesn't make sense. And so we would either be asking for a waiver from that, or we would be asking for consideration on, some of the additional improvements we're doing here on White Oak. In exchange for that, we're also dedicating some additional right-of-way that we were asked to do for the roundabout and along White Oak. So, even if the donation of that land can be considered, but if we could sit down with staff and kind of go through that, that's, I think, kind of the direction we'd like to go.
Okay. Questions, comments?
So Sergio or John, the 3 to 4 feet widening on White Oak, will that match up to the future improvements at White Oak and 109th? Does anybody know?
We met with the engineers, and they provided what the road diagram would look like, and it's a 3-lane road with a center turning lane. And so what they proposed or submitted would meet the drawings that are anticipated for the road widening, future road widening of White Oak
Okay,
in this part there, so.
okay.
And it still includes a D-cell and XL lane?
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
Very good.
very good. And then just, the 109th, there's plans, 2025, potentially for 109th to be improved. So the developer, rightfully so, is saying, why put in curbs when potentially it can be turned, have to be removed? I'm always concerned because unless there's funding and it's in the books, will it happen? So I think the developer and the town is trying to figure out a solution where potentially this board provides some sort of waiver with some understanding or agreement that a value similar to that, the curbs being put in, be provided to the town for some future improvement. So that's well above my pay grade. I know they're working on it internally. I don't know if there's any other comments, Sergio, that you'd like to say, or?
We'll be working together and with the attorney and the OTOF and the decision makers here internally to decide what's the best proposal to move forward with on the improvements of 109th.
Good. And then with the CCR issues, I think that's a separate issue from the primary plat that will be addressed with another amendment to their.
Correct.
plan.
They'll
So-
return at a later date, possibly near, in preparation for final plat approval, to present any amendments as this project continues to manifest, so.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Thank you for your patience, Ms. Yatsko. Appreciate that. Your patience with, I know you were hoping to get it approved last month. We were just making sure we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's, so I appreciate that.
Oh, no problem.
Any other questions or comments before we let him go?
No.
Questions, comments? All right. See you next 3 weeks. Next on the agenda, we have Lake Central School Corporation site plan amendment to add lighting to the varsity baseball and softball fields at Lake Central. We have Bill, how are you, sir?
Good, how are you guys
Rocco,
tonight?
how are you?
Doing fine, thank you.
Good.
Thank
Name and, just for the records, I'm sorry.
Bill Ledger, Director of Construction Facilities for Lake Central School Corporation.
And Larry Veracco, Superintendent, Lake Central.
If you can just give us a rundown on what you're proposing.
Yes, thank you. We're here tonight to answer any questions you have about what we submitted a month ago to the town. We'd like to add lights to our varsity softball and baseball fields, and we're here to answer any questions you may have on those plans we submitted. It's just the varsity fields.
John, have you reviewed these?
I have not, no.
Okay. I did see the photometrics. It seems like they're all, we're trying to keep any light out of the neighbors.
Yeah, they all meet your codes. We gave you a photometric plan of the property line, and we even did a grid into the west side property as well, with the new lights. These are Musco lights. They're used pretty much 90% throughout the country, all athletic, pro, college, high school fields, so they've done this a lot. So there's photometrics there. There's also photometrics of both the softball and baseball fields that meet your standards of 30 and 60. Excuse me, 60 in the infield or less and 30 or less in the outfield. We'd have 8 light standards at the at the baseball field, and we'd have 5 light standards at the softball field.
Okay. And the reason why these weren't put in when the original improvements were done?
When we came in 2011, we were told at the first meeting, don't even ask about lights at your baseball and softball fields.
Yeah.
So we didn't.
No.
I wasn't here at
No,
2000.
nobody in the room was here.
Then,
It was
I
a-
believe Mr. Volk said that.
Yes.
So it was the town, I just want to clarify, it was the town at that time?
Yes.
The town
The town had initiated some new light standards
Gotcha.
because
No,
of
no,
the night
that's-
sky and everything, so they were kind of strict and didn't want as little lighting as possible as far as additional athletic fields and our sign that we
You
all
think-
It
know
was
about.
less than a year after we were approved for lights at Clark Middle School for the football team. We didn't have a football field. We only had one football field in our 3 middle schools. And so when we put in the football field there, it was a struggle to get the lights just for those 4 or 5 games, plus track meets. We use them at the track meets because they run a little bit into the evening in the spring.
And the only additional lights we had at the high school on the new project was new parking lot lights, the soccer, and obviously the football field. But,
Because you can't hold sectionals here, could you?
No.
Because of no lighting.
No.
So it's two things, really. We've had a lot of games in the last 3 or 4 years canceled or cut short, I should say, after 5 or 5.5 innings or 6 innings. It's supposed to be a 7-inning game due to the darkness in April. That's one factor. The other factor is it is an advantage to be able to host the tournaments, and we don't qualify without lights.
Just ballpark, how late would these lights, I mean, I know you're not talking midnight, I know you're not saying that. How
No,
late
we-
could it potentially go? 10, 10:30, 11?
I don't
mean,
see it ever exceeding 10 o'clock for baseball. Football, we try to get them off by 9:30 or 9:45 for those 5 nights of the year. But sometimes our custodians are close to being done cleaning up, and so they'll push it to 10 or maybe 10:15. But for baseball, a baseball game is longer than softball, so it could last till 9:30, but I wouldn't see it much longer than that. And during the regular season, we wouldn't probably go past 9 o'clock because it's a school night, and that's just not the way we want to do it. So we would. What the other advantage for us is our JV fields, especially softball, it holds a lot of water, and because of the length of a softball game, they can play back to back. And baseball could do the same possibly, even if we said if the JV field's wet, we'll play a 5-inning JV game, but at least they get to play. Because currently, the JV and varsity play a lot of their games at the same time, they're both away or they're both home, at least in conference. And so the freshmen in the last few years have actually been getting more games than the JV because the JV has to cancel a lot on account of the field condition.
For those of you who don't know, both our varsity fields are synthetic turf, both softball and baseball.
What are the start times on your games? Usually.
Generally 4:30.
So I know in Crown Point Parks where I play, those lights are out at 10, and we start at 7. So I don't see you guys having any problems getting out of there.
As Dr. Baracco said, even our football game, even with the lightning delay, we're never on after 10:30.
Right.
That's the very latest, and that's very odd. That's an anomaly with the lightning delay or something like that, or finishing cleaning up.
And these are pretty good lights, Westcott lights. I mean, they
and
direct the
I
lights.
saw and there's not much light that goes past that fence line, actually.
No, I gave you the vertical and the horizontal
Yeah.
photometrics, and it's
Yeah.
pretty much zero.
It is.
all
It
the way
is.
across.
I was impressed.
Well, I told them you guys had pretty strict things with our neighbors, and they were great to work with. We had several meetings, and they got it to pretty much right where you see it now, Bob.
Any other questions?
Can I ask a question, John?
No. Yes, of course you can.
What's your estimated construction timeline?
What we'd like to do, provided we get approval at the commission meeting on the 7th, I would award Musco, it's kind of an all-inclusive package, they're doing it all, and they would go ahead and order the lights, the poles, and everything else. And I'd like to go ahead and get the infrastructure done during the summer when school's not in session, a little easier to go around. And then, as I think most of you know, electronics and HVAC equipment with lead times post-pandemic, they're telling me right now they can probably get it to me in the fall, and we would have them set in the fall. We'd have everything ready once the lights and the standards arrived, and we'd set them in the fall, and it'd be ready to play for the 24 varsity baseball and softball season.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Before we let them go, any other questions, comments, concerns?
It's kind of like Wrigley Field.
August 8th, 1988, yes, yes.
All right. We'll see. Any other questions? Nope. Good.
And we'll see you the June 7th, and thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everybody.
All right, guys.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have amendments to the subdivision control ordinance. Sergio.
All right, so I'm just going to run through this like we did last time, identifying some of the changes that have come in over the last couple of weeks, and then we'll send this out for you guys to review the highlighted sections in case there's anything else that you want added or changed. There's some additional work that needs to be done with regards to, and you'll see it, I think we've highlighted in red, but I'll just run through this. I think last time we did it in 20 minutes, so.
That was substantial packet of information.
Yeah. Well, you guys keep giving more information. that you
So,
want to say.
I mean, so a question for you.
Yeah.
Probably sent the town engineer review it, because it looked like a lot of it was.
Yeah, and we received information from our town engineer, and so, yep.
Okay.
And Bob's got some, John's got, I mean, everyone's been providing input, and so we've been updating as we receive it. So this is the version, this is the third version, and so we'll go ahead and get this out to you after we quickly review it. I'll go through the highlighted portions that are also underlined so you can see the changes. Again, I think this has not been changed since the first presentation, just identifying street name signs, informational signs, and stop signs prior to any issuance of home occupancies. We want to make sure that that information is on the public right-of-ways prior to residencies being established, and we've noticed that it has not been happening. We also proposed eliminating the entire section here and just rewriting it and adding more language in here that deals with clarifying some additional language.
Shall and will.
Yeah.
I love
So,
that.
And if you have another, and we've had a couple other additions with regards to inclusion and language and definition. So if
We
you
get
have
rid of
anything else,
may. We get rid of may. I like a very direct, you got a black and white choice. Can we get rid of that? Yeah.
Be direct.
Let's just be no or yes.
we added from the last discussion. We reviewed the four components that Attorney Decker provided us, and in some of the discussion, we looked at what a plat committee would look like in this. In the subdivision control ordinance, which really limits the decisions to no more than 2 lots, and it's really creating 2 lots or creating 2 lots into 1 lot, assuming all the infrastructure is there. But you'll receive this evening. Take a look at it. Essentially, this is language very similar to adjacent our neighboring community. So. Talking with engineers, we're looking at maybe changing up the way fees are received. This is a proposal that came in from an adjacent or neighboring community as well, whereas they receive some of the engineering fees up front and they're imposed onto the developer or the subdivider themselves. So that way the department's budget appropriations for engineering are not are more reserved for other entities or other projects that are meant for the town itself. So.
Would that be like part of a permit fee, or would that just be like an upfront? If you're going to have a sit down with us and our town engineer has to be there,
It's based on an hourly rate and what we would anticipate, and then that fee, which should get paid prior to the meeting or any action by the plan commission. So,
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it'll just preserve the budget that we were allocated for whatever year it is, and then really puts the burden onto the developers themselves to meet those requirements, those invoices, I should say. We're going to preliminary plat. Nothing's changed. We just really outlined the application fee and then engineering plat review fees. So there would be a general application itself for the engineering review fee, and we go from there. So
Here's the nice part.
So, and then we added the application fees and review fees are waived for subdivisions submitted on behalf of the town of St. John. So currently the way we do it is it goes through the town council, but any projects internally or on behalf of the town for the town would then be waived, including engineering fees. Here we added more language that kind of expand on all requirements for other governmental bodies. I think one of the things we've learned is that this is a little general, so we want to kind of tighten it up and not just identify, have the individuals assume that it's governmental bodies being within the municipal government itself. It's actually other governing bodies as well. So we just want to highlight that out so applicants understand what other bodies are available or would have an input or say on that. So.
Three cheers for from Bob.
So, then we talked about changing from 6 months to 12 months, the extension period there. Here, we talked also about including one digital copy including a digital set, all in PDF. So that way we have that prior to the meetings. One of the things we're looking to do is possibly as part of the Mylars or final plat approval, add a docket number to the file number of the proposed subdivision, just for quick reference. We currently manage our subdivision files. Typically someone will call and say, I'm in so-and-so subdivision, but then we have to go back and figure out what year was that subdivision. We can pull the plat up, but we can't pull the file up, because then we have to think back of the year that that subdivision was recorded and then go through the files. But if we ask them to put the file number, the docket number on the Mylar or the recorded plat, we can easily make a quick reference to that file number, so.
So like hypothetically, stream side today is 2306, so if that would be on their file, so any minutes associated with that 2306,
We would,
you would be able to quickly grab.
Yep. Right now, it's kind of a quest, a little journey that we take on, so. She says, mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I asked Jenna if she's up for the challenge.
2 weeks later.
Again, the request to add electronic, or kind of expand on what is identified as electronic digital copies. AutoCAD, we're looking at AutoCAD file format as well as in PDF, the most current AutoCAD file. And then also incorporating the latitude and longitude on some of these water valves and buffalo boxes. So. Talking internally as well with some of the, with our engineers, there's discussion on adding a language that deals with pre-construction meetings. We're looking at this section to possibly add that once we get some model language or some template of that language on what a pre-construction meeting would look like. This is kind of reserved, and we may look at adding this in here right before required improvements. So. With regards to required improvements, we're looking to, again, add language that really clarifies all public utilities and improvements occur in public rights-of-way within the subdivision and public rights-of-way contiguous to the subdivision itself, so.
I apologize, can you go up to the red one?
Mhm.
So it says engineer's recommendation, so this sort of gives us leeway if the town engineer wants to review something else that someone can't say it's outside our SCO.
Well, that's kind of the idea, but we would definitely work with the our legal team and obviously Adam to kind of give us directions. It was a thought that was thrown out there, and I didn't want to lose that idea, so I just kind of threw it in there until we run it through legal. So.
Okay.
Again, as I mentioned, public improvements and infrastructure within right-of-ways and contiguous of right-of-way subdivisions. Same thing again, along public rights-of-way, contiguous and subdivisions related to infrastructure. Same thing related to infrastructure. And here we're asking,
along your right away.
and here we're asking for the subdivided to, or outlining that a 12-inch minimum diameter water lanes run along arterial and collector functional class roadways, including frontage roads, and all mains shall be installed. So. And then all water lanes must be looped, no dead ends. We have to add definition of what the word looped means, so that way there's no misunderstanding there. This is a request from the fire department to incorporate shutoff valves and or placed as needed by the fire department. So as part of their review, they would indicate where they would recommend approval or needed shutoff valves. Also, yep.
Are you talking auxiliary valve or what shut-off valve? Do you know by any chance? Or?
No.
Okay.
We can ask the fire
So
department.
do you think we need clarification on that? If you're asking what type of shutoff valve is,
Replacement shall be shown on the final engineering plan, and I think it's just including an auxiliary valve, which every hydrant includes an auxiliary valve.
You want us to clarify that?
Yeah, I'll look at it tomorrow. Maybe I'll call Chief and ask him.
Okay. And so what I'll do is I will highlight it in red, so that way when you get this evening, you can at least review it.
That's something I think it was a valve before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Also in discussion, there was about HOAs and POAs kind of shall assume the replacement cost of decorative streetlights. And then,
Question.
mhm.
With respect to that, what if the HOA doesn't exist? Or kind of just is in that void? How do we enforce that? We just sue all the homeowners because there's no directors?
Yeah.
I mean,
We put liens on all of their properties.
well, I
There you
mean, I know it sounds bad, but
But it's true. I mean, HOAs will, I've seen HOAs go defunct after 12
yeah.
or 20, 25 years. and
Yeah.
so.
I mean, it's just something to think about.
I mean, that would pretty much be all new subdivisions, because all new subdivisions have the ornamental decorative black streetlights.
And they're not like the cheap, or I shouldn't say cheap.
Well, not all
They're not
new.
like the less expensive, aluminum,
Right.
No. city streetlights.
I
if you
mean,
will.
just thinking out loud, Castle Rock doesn't really have an HOA that people pay dues for.
Right.
It has an HOA to regulate, what color your sunroom screens are when you screen it in or whatever, but they don't really collect dues. There's no entrance sign to maintain. There's no outlots to maintain. So
Right.
now in Castle Rock, your concerns kind of become valid because nobody's paying into a kitty versus like the preserve. I think they all pay, each home pays a couple $100 a year, and that's to pay the sprinkle all along down White Oak and to pay to maintain the giant entrance signs and get fresh mulch there every spring. But
Yeah.
so in their instance, they might have excess to buy a $1,500 light pole if a car runs it over or what have you. But in the other ones that don't really take in money, they just kind of regulate who's putting what in their yard and making sure it matches the house.
Right.
That's where I think this is going to be tricky to enforce or collect on.
I'm not saying that the HOA or POA that wants those, decorative lighting, post boxes, stuff like that, that those shouldn't be replaced, or, the town shouldn't be replacing them. I mean, if there's a ground fault issue, does the town have to chase that down? I mean,
That's what I was about to ask. And let's use
Yeah.
Castle Rock. Car hits it, or like you said, the light goes out.
yeah.
Does someone in Castle Rock call the town to replace it, or is it Castle Rock's?
No. They'll
Well,
call-
typically now anywhere you see the black, like down
With the-
Patterson, the black light poles
With the acorn.
with the acorn on top, they call the town. Now, if it's a wood pole, then that's NIPSCO. You call NIPSCO, hey, the light on the wood, like in Lantern Woods, there's the wooden telephone poles with the light on top. That's a NIPSCO pole. And then all of ours are, and then some subdivisions like Bramblewood and Three Springs have the tall silver aluminum poles.
So the town's responsible. for
But
all
it's
those.
still, yeah, there's still the towns, if it's not a wood pole by NIPSCO, then the town would go out and troubleshoot it and replace the ballast or the bulb or the
bulbs, whatever it is.
globe or whatever.
So, I mean, here's a question. I know we're just having discussion on this, but and I don't know how much more you got to go through here, Sergio.
We're
and
about
I
a
don't
third
wanna
of the
take
way.
up time, but if you've got a situation where a developer is using, pretty poles, pretty mailboxes, pretty, signposts, stuff like that, if they're using those and that's their standard in their subdivision, is there any provisions that we could say, okay, well, then this has to, you have to put so much aside for that, for maintenance and stuff like that? I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas, guys.
Well, I know streetlights have always been us, but the signage is, that alone, we don't stock those black posts, the
Right.
hot
Yeah.
metal posts like in Lake Hills and the gates, and they don't want us putting in our signs. So they're an eyesore. So I believe it's Lake Hills it's actually on them to replace those signs.
And they do pay,
those
yeah, they
signs,
do.
and they do now.
But I guess
that
your
was-
question is, if there isn't a HOA, then
Right. Who's doing it?
who's doing
Right.
it?
The town's going to end up doing it. So it's like, if we set
Or-
a standard like this, how are we going to enforce it? I guess is
Right.
kind of how.
No, like in
And I
certain other
agree with 100% on the street signs, because we can't stock, the square base posts they use in the preserve or the round base posts they use in Lake Hills. I mean, you'd have
And I realize no one here
a street sign's a little more maintenance free than a
approved
street
any
light.
of that, but I mean, isn't there traffic issues with using, funky signs that don't comply?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean,
If a stop sign's not at a certain elevation, you,
right.
Yeah,
not-
they would have to meet the country standard
Mhm.
for
and a lot of them
size and
don't.
height, yeah.
Well, I guess
So when I don't, when I.
I think we should
Not that
just
I
go
ever
with-
would, but I'm just saying, so when I don't stop at a completely unregulated sign, and I got an issue, now I got to, I mean, I just see where, this could become a mess, that's all. It's very messy, very messy.
Public Works would like to regular galvanized U-channel post,
They're nice.
and we're fine with
Right.
it.
They get knocked down, you rip it out, you put a new one in. Easy peasy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then do we change our standards that everyone has the same decorative light? If the town's responsible for it, other communities say, these are our standards because this is what we have in stock.
Or this is where we're gonna replace it with.
Well, they are pretty much all the same now on the light poles,
Yeah.
and we even did, the last time we did the subdivision control ordinance in 2020, we put in the cabinet
Yep.
that has the photo cell that turns it on at dusk and off at sunrise. So we have that all standard in our subdivision control ordinance, so they're all using the same posts now. It's just, I don't know why this,
So like when we did the PUD for the one, they have silver though, but not, we have, what kind of color are our poles? Light poles,
the ones we use are the black
black.
wrought iron looking.
Yeah, so the subdivision control ordinance does identify what it does allow or regulate what a decorative light pole would look like. This came from a department who just was concerned about, how the cost of replacement and who would bear that cost, so.
So maybe St. John has a couple standards, a couple examples for street lights and one, okay, and one or two
Yeah,
street
it's
signs.
in there and they're using it, but now this is just saying that
Who pays for it?
from now on, the town will never pay to replace a light pole again. But then on Patterson, then who's responsible? It's not even in an HOA, then we got them all from 93rd to,
So when a street light
90,
gets hit, John, then it won't be on the town, it'll be on the HOA.
If it's
that's
in-
what this is
If it's in
saying.
a subdivision,
But let's say it gets hit and the wires are exposed, they're gonna call Public Works. you know
right,
that,
and how
then-
quickly are they gonna get a light
An
pole and
electrician
get
out
an
there,
electrician
right.
out there to set it and everything like
Right.
that, so. It could be a safety hazard
In
on
the
that. end, too,
meantime,
you got-
someone's puppy just urinated on that live wire and it
Yeah.
didn't go over too well.
I think what Joe, if you don't mind me, I'm not trying to put words in, you just want to find responsibility. Who's going to be responsible for this? And is there,
If we're gonna say
Yes.
responsible, where's the enforcement?
that's it.
Right.
I think that's what we're looking for. I think that, and I agree with you. There's got to be some kind of enforcement on that.
The town can do it.
Yeah.
Shut their water off.
But, there are, I might be wrong. Shut their water. Everything off.
do we know of another community that doesn't make it their requirement to replace light posts? Not that we have to follow what everybody else does.
Mr. Chair, I am not aware, and I'm not sure that this would be appropriate for the subdivision control ordinance, because, these provisions of town code are basically regulating new subdivisions. It's not intended to impose liability for things that happen 5 or 10 or 15 years down the road, after the developer is long gone, so.
And even for that, all the light poles are located in the designated right of way anyway, so I don't know, how can an HOA be responsible for a public improvement in a right of way that they technically don't, it's not like it's on an outlot that they have ownership of, it's in the right of way.
So to that point, so here's our standard. If you deviate from the standard, developer, then, you've got to have some set aside or something to, it has to meet the minimum standard, right? So our minimum standard's X. If it don't meet the minimum standard, then
Joe, you
there
on?
should be something.
Is your microphone on?
Joe, your microphone on?
So that's what I'm saying, is because now, we're paying for mailboxes or we're paying for street signs that aren't in compliance with the, motor vehicle code. I mean, I could see where, where it does make sense to impose some kind of, here's our minimum standard. You gotta, comply with the minimum standard. If you go above and beyond that, great, but here's the minimum.
So if they don't meet our current standard for lighting or street signs or whatever type of signs.
Because you're right,
We're
we
looking
can't,
for-
we can't impose this retroactively, right? I mean, that's not gonna happen.
So is the idea then that we should probably just remove this language? Is that probably?
Well, what
is it
happens
not
if, but if
enforceable?
someone
Yeah,
comes in and
kinda.
doesn't try to move our standards?
I don't know
And
if you
we
can
al-
enforce it, like John said, it's
sorry,
in
I'm sure
a
you
public right of way.
No, it's, yeah.
Okay.
So,
And my other comment is that you may not want homeowners associations
Responsible.
making those repairs or replacing
Right.
stop signs or, I think your point is that it could be delayed, but even if it's done, it's gonna, maybe if it's a homeowner who goes out and says, well, I used to be an electrician and I'm gonna donate my time. Well, no, we don't want that either.
Right, true.
I
yeah.
got one of those in my subdivision.
so
Well, there's gotta be a minimum. There has to be a minimum standard, and that could be equated to dollar signs. So that way, the town is only responsible at this point. Anything beyond that, you guys are gonna be responsible. Or
So
because
I'm getting the
involved with
impression
a lot
that-
of tricky questions. there.
sounds like there's a consensus to remove this.
Yep,
Okay,
I would say.
boom, it's gone. All right, I'll move on. And also adding, there was a request to add language that says and street information signs, so it's not just necessarily the names of the streets, but also any language that deals with no parking or any information that may come from that as approved by the Public Works Department. Design standards, again, here, we're just increasing it from 2 to 3.5 inch, 9-inch hot asphalt mix. Here, the subdivision shall at least have 2 street accesses. We added language that deals where the 2 points shall scale up. We've been having some discussion with some different interested developers, and sometimes they want to come in and do a subdivision and let's say have a lot have access to a arterial road rather than go out onto a collector road that then leads out onto a arterial road. So they want direct access from a major thoroughfare. And so the thought is that if they have the opportunity to connect to a lower classified roadway, that they do that first and then have some type of mechanism that scales up to the larger type of traffic. So
So the preference would be to a lower classification roadway versus like a 93rd or something like that, which
So,
is a
yeah.
higher classification.
correct. So the example, hypothetically, say there is a development, let's say, that comes in and that fronts on Calumet, and it's a large piece of parcel. And this individual, let's say, wants 2 frontage parcels that have direct access onto Calumet, but they also have an internal road, so it's almost like a shared road. The idea would be that those the 2 frontage lots on Calumet would first have should first seek access onto that interior road.
Gotcha.
So that way it comes out, it scales up to the next largest road would then be Calumet Avenue, and hopefully there would be some type of signalized or structure for traffic mechanism, controlling traffic, so.
Gotcha.
Here we go. There was a request to kind of widen the request for right-of-ways on collector streets from 70 to 80 feet. Again, that's just with the thought of the future developments coming in with complete streets and sidewalks and having the ability to have infrastructure installed as part of all that as well. So, request for no street name shall be named after a subdivision outside the proposed subdivision. We have that.
Do
What?
we really?
Yeah.
I was trying to think of what subdivision.
We have Summerlin subdivision and Summerlin Street in Mill Creek.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
And you also have Edgewood Court in Silverleaf and Edgewood subdivision.
Because that's the first place I would go. If I said you got to go to Edgewood, I'm going to Edgewood.
Yeah.
Again, here, all street signs and lights shall be replaced by the cost of the HOA where one exists. It sounds like we're going to not move forward with that language. Boom, it's gone. There we go. So. So there was some, so ultimately this is what it looked like. It'd be road and pavement on one side and then lawn and sidewalk on the other. Currently what we have is reversed, and it leads to some confusion. So we'll get that updated and changed. Again, this is the 8-inch minimum diameter for all local street functioning class roadways, and 12 inches this is the water lines for all arterial collector road classifications, including streets identified as frontage roads. Again, and then we talk about the word looped, just to reemphasize or reinforce that distribution system of water. Fire hydrants, again, this is a request from the fire department. The idea is then that rather than painting the entire hydrant different colors, just the to identify these hydrants, the tops would be identified, color coordinated based on the gallons per minute. So, and then change the number of 500 to from the intersection exceeds 500 feet to 300 feet. So that way they've identified that functions better. So
Just don't change the model of the fire hydrant.
Mm-mm.
Love the name of it.
So.
It's Kennedy.
No, we got rid of
We
those.
use these Jordans.
Did you get rid of the Kennedys? Let's put that back in there.
We again, I think the building commissioner made references to the subdivision control ordinance and requirements on cabinets and enclosures. That's there. Also, where there are to avoid. Here it kind of goes back to the street layouts, and what we want to do is maybe now, as part of the subdivision control, identify where there should be a 5 foot no access easement shall be identified along higher functional class roadways, especially along lots at frontage where may be avoided, except where one of the street arterial roads has no direct access. So again, this reinforces the scaling up on the roadway class system, but this just adds something that says and add a 5 foot no access easement along those higher function class systems. So wherever possible, lot access should be located on interior roadways. Again, it goes back through the design to scale up on functional class roadway systems. So. 24-inch diameter, so that way there's no misunderstanding on what these manholes coverage should be, because it's been written, and then there's a diagram that shows that they're 24-inch diameter. So. We can avoid any oopsies on that end. Again, 24-inch diameter sewer system. So just kind of clarifying some of the language there. This is stuff that kind of came from our engineering and stormwater. It's a little foreign to me, but I think this is what they want. I think we've got it in there.
John, do you know if that follows any standards?
Yes, used everywhere else. I had never seen a 5-year storm sewer design till I came here.
But is that just like what the state of Indiana requires or something like that? I didn't know if it was
It's a standard engineering design, is usually 10-year for storm sewer.
Okay.
In 30
or 10 is better than 5. It protects.
10
us
is
a lot
better than
more.
5. I had never seen it in 35 years.
Okay.
All right, some numbers changing there. So
That was a correction. That
Yep.
it had incorrect numbers in
Yep.
there.
we're sprinting to the end.
62 pages. Is it 62?
Again, penalties will be assessed according to the following table. This is in relationship to, I don't think we passed it out, but let me double check. I wonder why this is highlighted. Oh, you know why? Because we modified, what section is it? Currently, the enforcement reads like anywhere from $50 to like 5,000. And so we wanted to kind of tighten it up. That's why, because it makes reference back to this based on the violations and fractions. So that kind of identifies how to identify those fractions. There was also some inconsistency. So that 3 years for the maintenance, We also require a 3-year maintenance letter agreement and then a 3-year bond. So we just want to make those consistent because right now one says 2 years, the other one says 3. So we have a letter for 3 and a bond for, or surety for 2.
Yeah, and this just came, or will be coming up.
Adding additional requirements for the permits, which includes percentage of lot coverage. We should do that. Oops.
Is that more for stormwater? You want to know what the lot coverage is?
Well, that was really, it's more for when the individual plat of surveys come in. It helps identify what actual lot coverage is existing or proposed as part of the individual lot. So we can cross-reference that with our current current zoning codes on what the permitted lot coverage is. So.
Yeah, so when the overall subdivision gets approved, the calculations are based on certain assumptions of imperviousness for the design. So let's say that's 28%. So individually on a lot, that should be the coverage should not exceed 28%. Otherwise, it could begin to skew the detention design possibly. So it basically ties them together. So, yeah.
And then identifying water valves on the individual lots as part of the inspection process. Here, I think this is something where we need to get together probably with Public Improvements Inspector and the Building Commissioner to kind of clarify any inconsistencies between the zoning ordinance on certificate of occupancies and the role that each department plays, so that we're consistent on that. So that's why it's highlighted red. That one needs a little bit more work. Oh, and then this is where it goes back to the portion that was highlighted but that was not underlined. So the language says not less, with regards to penalties, not less than $100 and not more than $5,000. There really was no chart to identify what would be the appropriate fee. So if someone feels like, hey, I feel like $100 today, so I'm just give you $100, but I'm not in a good mood today, so you're going to get the $5,000 max. So what we did was kind of clarify it to $250 per day for each offense, including stormwater penalties, excluding the stormwater penalties that were highlighted earlier in this section, because they actually identify how this fee is scheduled or scaled based on the offense. So
And we have a fund in place already by Clerk Treasurer's Office.
it's called the general fund.
General fund?
Yep.
Oh, sweet.
Yep. And that was it. So I'll send this out this evening before I leave. But I just wanted to kind of walk through some of these sections. And if you have any additional comments, and we'll work through especially the red highlighted sections. We'll work with engineering, and we'll work with Public Works and building to kind of refine those.
Sergio, what's the time frame? And this goes before the town council, right, for their final approval?
We'll have public hearing and then
Public hearing?
Yeah, so the Plan Commission will have a public hearing and basically make a recommendation, once it's in a final form, and then vote to make a recommendation to the
Gotcha.
town council, and then the town council will take it up.
And all staff has reviewed and added whatever they thought was appropriate for the subdivision control.
yeah.
ordinance.
So
Okay.
like I said, we'll send this out, and then you guys can at least identify if there's anything else, if you're okay with the language there, and we'll go from there.
Sergio, can you go back to the top, please?
He wants it done all over
You
again.
want to do again?
No,
He wants
just
to talk about light posts and
it took a while
HOAs.
for me to get up to speed.
All right. Where did you leave
Yeah,
off?
Purdue outfit. You were, man. Put the shirt and tie on again. That might have helped you out.
No, down that there was something about street signage, and when it went in right there, I think.
Street names.
Should we change that to like building permits issued? Because I mean, you have a lot of construction traffic throughout building a home. So if you're going to let, I'm just thinking like the emergency responses and stuff like that. If something happens to, a worker when they're pouring a foundation or something like that, in theory, that's saying that there could be no signage up at that point as long as they get it up before the home's occupied. Well, you got 9 months of construction for an average house with guys that could fall off roofs, guys that could get shot with a nail gun, whatever, and you don't have street signs or anything to aid the fire department in finding them if it's a new subdivision, it's not gonna be on GPS yet.
So is that what you want it to look like, John?
Yeah, I mean, that's at least my hope, but I don't think we need to change this because I just wanted to have a discussion on it.
Oh, you want to have a
No,
discussion?
it makes sense to me.
I mean, you know,
Have the signs up.
And then if people are looking for a lot to pick and what, I mean, you should have stop signs there if, you know, people are gonna be driving through.
Yep.
Looking to pick a lot or, checking on their house or whatever, you know, I think it'd be more
agree.
prudent to have them up sooner rather than.
Yep.
I would
And then
agree.
that way the developer, you know, and then even if we do issue a permit and then the developer doesn't put the signs up, now you gotta hold up occupancy on a home that a builder built while you chase down a developer to do something to give the builder the occupancy.
Yeah,
So-
it's not
I think we
too much
put them-
chasing. I'd have it on the developer's hands.
But at least,
We put them up, right, John? And then the developer.
unless they're the decorative ones, then, so
Right.
like in the preserves, you know,
Parish Woods, for instance, we put those up. And
Right.
then they pay it.
they reimburse for the materials and time, yep.
All right, so that makes sense, John, just because throughout the paragraph, it always refers to building permit. And so, for some reason, it looks like the original language was home occupancies. We just eliminated it and changed it out to building permit.
So once a building, so say stream size, I'll use them, 54 lots, it's all built out, they got all the roadway, but then the street sign will go in once the first housing permit gets approved.
Before, at
Prior.
least then this gives me
Prior.
the power to say, sorry, I can't issue a building permit in here yet, go to the developer and get him to put up the signs.
So he would have to put a street sign in.
Then I could give the building permit to dig the hole and start the house.
Have we had ever a situation where a house hasn't gotten built a year after the development has been in? I just want to make sure,
Not,
no, because you're
Typically
not,
not.
okay, just want to make sure. Okay.
but at least then you don't have something, you don't start the ball rolling of a house being built, and then you got that in limbo while
I-
you chase down.
I
the-
like
Maybe,
that- I like that
maybe
idea.
permanent street names too. You don't want them on a piece of cardboard,
Yeah,
right down the Joliet Street. I got your street sign up.
It's a garage
on-
sale crossed out.
It's on a piece
pizza
of
box on an
cardboard.
airframe barricade.
It's a secondary plat, yeah.
Stop here.
Stop it.
Sorry to tell you after this.
Just a
Sure,
stop sign,
sure
you
that
cut it out.
Last half be
Personal to tell you
eliminated.
that.
But that's a good idea.
Permanent
Putting that
street
sign
name
before,
signs.
because a lot of things do happen when.
Did you hear that, Sergio?
I'm sorry, nope.
Permanent street name signs.
So
They,
it's not
you
a
don't want to,
temporary-
you don't want them go out there with a piece of cardboard and a handwritten.
Hey, signs up.
Yeah,
Crayons.
signs up.
That's an octagon, not a hexagon.
Yeah.
I'm really standing up.
I didn't pass third grade.
All right, and then there's possibly maybe some changes to this portion of that as well. So, okay,
You probably can always find a way. Imagine how the developers are.
Oh, yeah. That's,
I'm not saying all of them, but, you know. It doesn't say that.
Maybe this is not the
gotta
time.
think like a lawyer.
But some of the street stop signs are covered by the trees that I've noticed, and some cars just actually slam on the brakes when they see that sign. Who's responsible trimming those trees so that the homeowner?
It's homeowner, right?
Whose tree is it?
Typically, yeah.
But they're on the.
It's in the right of way.
It's
It's in the right of
Parkway.
way, yeah.
So yeah.
I'll give you a saw if you want to go out to.
No, I would be more than happy to the
That's
point.
my excuse for blowing through that stop sign. No,
The
well-
residents, it depends, you know, we have gone out before and trimmed the trees around stop signs, and they come out and they're not satisfied at all, so.
But
Now, if
there's
you
a
got
safety.
saw, how about a ladder? Do you have a good ladder?
We have a bucket truck.
So, no, I mean, Joe, I would recommend if there's an intersection that you're concerned about, is to let either Public Works know or
No, well,
you
yeah,
know, that resident to say, hey, the tree blocks the stop sign.
because there's a lot of them, and it's the nice trees and everything. I can understand that, but the safety is what concerns me. That I think the signs they just pop up. I think you've probably seen some of them already. As the neighborhoods get old, those trees begin to their branches begin to cover the stop signs. But that's, I didn't know if that was a topic we could bring up in here, but
I mean, do we have any requirements of a tree distance from a stop sign? I mean, I know we have, like if it's in a corner lot, my
You know,
BZA days. going
We
to my
did have some
BZA days,
discussion on that.
That corner,
the angle,
the vision triangle.
Vision
Yeah,
triangle.
so we did have some discussion on that. It just never made it to this round of updates, but I think we probably should bring that back, right?
So there's a
And you
vision
had-
triangle, Joe, on an corner intersection. It's, I don't know what the dimension is, but it's like a triangle where you can't have anything blocking the sign of side, line of sight.
and then,
So I don't know if that tree is in it.
well,
So
see,
that's
and
something
I think at the beginning, the tree had no impact because it was so small, but as it grew, the
Yeah.
triangle got squeezed in a little bit.
I suppose in the subdivision control ordinance, you could regulate the location of trees in, you know, or prohibit the trees being planted
Within a certain-
within that
Yeah.
vision triangle.
Outside of parkways.
Yeah.
Or
Right
that,
away.
or that,
And
yeah.
that's kind of interesting too, because back in the early 90s and early 2000s, parkway trees were a big requirement. A lot of the covenants said you shall have 2, 3, 4 parkway trees. Yeah. And now a lot of the developments are saying you can't have parkway trees, so.
But I think just the responsibility of somebody's got to take care of that tree before someone gets hurt. That's all.
Do you guys have, what's the town's preference?
I
Inside
think what they do
parkway,
now
outside?
doesn't Bob go out.
Out of?
Do we have to give you a flat jacket, Bob? For you to cut the tree?
Is it just because of
I
the,
don't have to do
is it just because of stop sign issues?
Well,
pipe-
and-
the
Water main
Water
issues,
main issues?
everything.
Pop and curb, but
Everything.
lifting up sidewalks.
Yeah.
Out of,
Eventually, they'll,
Is the
They'll
town
do it.
responsible for busting up sidewalks? Oh, sweet. Good to know.
a lot of times they'll plant land on the water service or.
On the tree thing, so we'll bring that up for discussion in the next couple of weeks, and then anything else that, once you all receive this and review it, if you have any other ideas or comments or thoughts for them, and we'll update those as well, and we'll present them usually for.
Okay.
good job.
Anything else for the good of the cause?
Thank you.
Anybody?